Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Unfiltered podcast with me, Elif and Leticia. Hi,
Hi,
Leticia.
welcome back. Hello. How's it going?
Good, good, good. I hope everybody is well. So, today's topic, we're going to chat a little bit about boundaries and what boundaries are and how just my personal experience, your personal experience, my experience with clients, my spiritual perspective on boundaries, and your perspective as a therapist as well as an intuitive. So we're just going to chat about that a little bit today. Yeah.
Yes, it's one of my most passionate topics and one of my most hardest lessons in life. Part of my purpose here with helping people for sure. So I really do love talking about this and
Yeah.
educating people about this.
Yes. So would you like to start, Letitia? Um, how do you want to do this? Would you like to start? Would you like to pose a question to me, or what are you comfortable with?
Interesting. I'm trying to think like what would be the best way, I guess, to dive into this. I mean, when I think about boundaries, I think about how this affects everything.
Yeah.
It affects everything in our lives.
Yes.
And some people don't even know that they need them. Like, they don't even know that they're supposed to have them. It's kind of like this need you don't even know that you need until you have them.
Mm.
And then once you have them, I mean, this is just from working, with so many people and then also with my own experience. Once you have them, you go through, like a stage where you start to feel a lot of guilt. You start to feel like you're a bad person, like, am I being mean? Am I hurting others? And it's just because, you're not used to considering yourself as an individual and what it is that you actually need and teaching others how to better understand you as an individual.
Yeah.
So for me, it's just something that I attract in my clients. I bring in people that don't have good boundaries for themselves. They don't even know what they are in a lot of ways because they grew up with parents that also didn't like boundaries and also, in a sense, condition them to think that you're supposed to be over sacrificing yourself in order to show that you love and care about others. And a lot of these people are beautiful people, like they have really big hearts and they really want to care and show that they care about another person. So there's a lot of like emotional depth here, but there's a lot of self-abandonment when you don't have boundaries, which we've talked about before, how that doesn't lead to healthy relationships, because once you're in a relationship, a romantic relationship, this actually really really plays a big part, where you end up attracting someone or something that really leeches off of you and doesn't consider your needs or what it is that you want in the partnership or even in friendships. It's not just limited to romantic relationships, but I mean, it's going to especially hurt you more in romantic relationships, is what I've seen. So, I mean, that's my introduction, to my experience with boundaries. I mean, other than like relationships I've been in that have really, caused a lot of pain because I thought that that's what I was supposed to be doing. I was modeled by my mother, to have to do that for men. And that's what I thought I was supposed to do. Like all of the women in my family, that's what they do. They over sacrifice for men. And in a way, it's almost like trying to convince somebody that you are worth like their time, that you are good enough in order for them to not to leave you. So there are some abandonment issues there usually with like lack of boundaries too. So I'm going to stop there because I can go on about this forever. But what are your thoughts about what I'm saying?
So I think that understanding why boundaries and what boundaries are essential for us to have healthy relationships, because the boundary in itself is not a structure or a behavior that is placed between two people to create separation. But I think that it's to create a distinction between where I begin and you, where you know, where you, and so, because sometimes we see our relationships as extensions of ourselves and we think that's great. But if you don't see me in the relationship, you can't fully love me. And if you don't see where you end and where I begin, then you cannot recognize me as a human being in the relationship that has separate likes, separate hobbies, um, values, you know.
Yeah.
And I think this is why people tend to look for people that they think are like them, come from where they come from, like the things they like, because they think it's going to be, because we're lazy. We're lazy. We want, that's it. We're lazy.
Oh my
We
god.
are. So we don't want to have to think about somebody else. We don't want to have to think about, if I want to think about what I want to eat, what's comfortable for me in this scenario. And that's a sign of emotional immaturity. If my parents make a demand of me, I want to think about what's going to be comfortable for me. Let me just meet their demand. But when I'm in a relationship, I've got to consider this other person who is not an automatic extension of me. So it's sort of like, if you have a rabbit and you have a fish, you're not going to put them both into a tank because the rabbit's going to drown. And we experience relationships like that when we don't have the emotional maturity to recognize that we're an individual, firstly our own needs, and then the other person's needs. That's what boundaries are about. And what boundaries are not only conditional. A lot of people think boundaries are about what I'm going to say, what I'm going to do. So a lot of clients will say to me, but I said that. I will investigate and process with them the internal dialogue and the emotional experience, like the experience that takes place in their body and in their mind hours after the action. Because that internal boundary is how your experience is the sensitivity and the awareness that you have around your own needs, because often we don't even have that. So a lot of people think the external boundaries, if I can just learn to say no, so they will find ways to say no by avoiding it, by avoiding answering, by avoiding confrontation, by just going along with whatever,
Yeah.
or avoiding the relationship altogether, not seeing the friend because I don't want to say no. uh, but the impact that all of that has on them mentally, emotionally, is so powerful and has such a powerful impact on us in our bodies physiologically. That's why I can read people's energy. I can read when there is a whole lot of anxiety, fear, when there's trauma around feeling oppressed. Even if none of their relationships are oppressive, their experience of the interaction is oppressive because they don't have an internal boundary. And the other people outside of them don't even have, it's not like they force them to do anything or ask them for anything. So I think it's important for us to know that boundaries are twofold. It's the boundaries that it's the choices we make. It's the communication with the people, with the relationships. So it's the action, the 3D action, the conversation, the expression of how we feel. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with that. Why are you doing that? Have you thought about this? But then it's also the internal boundary, which takes place between in the relationship between me and self, you know? The two versions of all of us, which is the personality and the soul self. Are they in agreement? Are they in alignment? Or are they arguing with one another for the next 2 days because one of them decided that they're going to avoid or they're going to say no? So I think that's really, really important to know. We all care about our relationships. We all want healthy, functioning relationships. And we all want other people to know how to treat us well. But a boundary is the part of that interaction that is our responsibility to treat us well, you know?
Yeah.
So
And
that is why I think boundaries are here.
yeah, no, sorry. I didn't know if you had stopped talking or not. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, it's fine. You can continue. I was done.
um, oh, okay. I was gonna say that, a couple things came up like when you were speaking, and one of them is, I was just having a conversation about this yesterday with a client where it's like, what's more, like, what's actually more liberating, right? Like, in the moment, avoiding something or someone and not being your authentic self, by saying what it is that you don't feel comfortable with, or saying no, or whatever it is that's coming up, and later ruminating about it and being worried about it, being anxious about it, and not feeling good about it, and then that takes up so much more time and energy from you that you're just feeling restless and anxious and stressed out, rather than a moment of discomfort, maybe when you have to confront something that you're not comfortable with. But it's so liberating. It is so, I mean, I remember being such a people pleaser back in the day. Like, I want to say, like, around, early 20s, when I was like in my 20s or so. But just like always saying yes, yes to this, yes to that, everything yes, and just feeling overwhelmed and just like, okay, I really don't want to go there. I really don't like that person. Like, I don't feel comfortable with that one thing I said yes to. And then it's like, then you have to go backwards and play cleanup, because it's like, okay, I don't want to go there, like I'm gonna cancel anyways, or I just was avoiding upsetting that person. But then later what happens is that you upset yourself, like you're actually not honoring your own energy. And when you have that discomfort come up for you, it's for a reason, because
Yes.
you don't like whatever it is that you're saying yes to or that you're agreeing to. And so lots of times the consequence is that later you are feeling depleted. You're not at peace within yourself. And I think that that might be the soul's way to communicate to you, like, hey, there's something here that you weren't authentic with about originally. Like, now you have to go back. And this looks like people ghosting others, last
Yeah.
minute cancellations, I'm sick, whatever that is, just because someone doesn't feel comfortable, in the moment telling that person. Or even if it's like, I don't know yet, right? Like, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how I'm going to feel, if I want to go or not. Can I get back to you? Rather than feeling so anxious and feeling so worried about affecting someone else's emotions, like you're basically being responsible for
Yeah.
someone else's feelings in the moment too, with not wanting to let them down. So you're like, yes, I have to say yes, because if I say no, they're going to be hurt, they're going to be upset with me, they're going to break up with me, whatever that fear is. And that's actually worse in the long run. So, anyways, clients, or not just clients, but people in general, don't know what that feels like until you start practicing this and being your most authentic self, which is part of my purpose here too, as a therapist, as a human, helping people come more into being who they really want to be, who they're supposed to be. And that may not always rub everybody the right way, because it's not supposed to be for everyone else. It's supposed to be for you.
Yes.
So those are my thoughts about what you talked about.
Absolutely. And this just brings me to this next thought. You're talking about taking the action and then having that aftermath of the internal emotional conflict that can sometimes come up with either speaking your truth and not being fully in alignment with it, or not speaking your truth and then feeling like you've betrayed yourself. That brings us to, how do I get to that place? And why is it that I find myself in this position where I have this internal turmoil, where the internal boundary is not quite there yet? Well, it's about value. So I think we need to ask ourselves the question, what is most important to me? Does it matter to me? So why am I doing this? This brings us to the why. Am I feeding Leticia every day because I don't want her to think I'm a bad friend. I know she doesn't she's tired or she's struggling to cook for herself, and I don't want her to feel that I am a bad friend, so I'm going to cook for her every day. Or am I cooking because the idea of her having that meal ready is what matters to me? Like, is feeding her what matters to me? Or is her seeing me as this good friend that is willing to feed her what matters to me? Because those are two different things. And it does take brutal honesty and introspection. And the nice thing is it's a conversation you have with you. So is me giving this person honesty what matters to me? Or is how they see me what matters to me? Is Leticia seeing, is what matters to me that Leticia sees me as an honest person? Or is me giving Leticia my honesty what matters? Because those are two different things. And if I can be honest with myself that you seeing me as an honest person is what matters here, then I don't value honesty as much. I value how you see me. And maybe that's where some of the resistance comes from. Because if me offering you honesty is what matters, then I won't be anxious about the fact that you might not want to be my friend afterwards, because I'm not offering you honesty because I I want you to see me in a particular way. I'm offering you honesty because I value that and I want to offer you something of value. So when we have these internal conflicts that come up as a result of us either not saying how we feel, not saying no when we really wanted to, or not saying, this is what I'm sensing, this is how I feel, am I on the right track? You know, having these honest conversations that allow us to be vulnerable takes a lot of courage. But we cannot do that until we are ready to be honest with ourselves. And I think that so often we beat the drum of, well, when you ask someone, and I've had this experience, when I ask myself, why is this upsetting me? Then I'll ask the next question, why does that matter? I'll always get to the bottom of it. You know, what is going on here? For me, boundaries became a lot easier when I was able to recognize that, no, actually, that doesn't really matter to me as much as this. And when I'm taking this action, I'm not really giving space to the truth or to love or to being a good friend, you know? Something that came up for me this week, Leticia, and you might find it quite interesting, is that I realized that for most of us in our interactions in relationship, and I realize it about me too, and I think it's something we all do, is that we've got a superiority or an inferiority complex in our interactions with other people. Why is it that for such a long time, I would show up as Elif, the conscious, proper, caring, considerate, emotionally available to all of your needs and your issues, but I don't bring the Elif that feels vulnerable, exhausted, you know, all the autistic Elif and the like. My circle became smaller and smaller and smaller because I decided I don't think I have the right to expect other people to put up with all these other things. Now, my ego might have said, that's a considerate thing to do, but the truth is, it's an inferiority or a superiority complex where I think that I am capable of handling everybody else's vulnerability and everybody else's humanity, but I don't think anybody's capable of doing the same for me. So either I think I'm better than everybody else, or, you know what I mean? And I had I just had this download this week where I realized that in our relationship dynamics, we all want to be equal. And in order to have unconditional love, because in that environment, we will be able to give other people the space to honor their boundaries and give ourselves the space to honor our boundaries. And in the relationships I've been experiencing of late, I don't need to put down any boundaries. There is this awareness of what matters to me, as if it's the most obvious thing in the world, whereas in the past, when I wasn't giving myself that permission to be so unapologetically honest about, like I would say to you, you know, you and I have those conversations where I have to say, remember now, this is how my brain works. So you've got to be direct. You've got to tell me exactly why you're having this conversation with me. And, or I'll remind you and say, we started this conversation on that topic. Now, an hour into the conversation, you might have gone off onto other topics. I still think we're talking about the same thing, right? I never did that in the past. And now, and the internal boundary with that is that I've given myself permission to be different and to not see it as something that is broken. To recognize that, yes, I'm brilliant and I'm intelligent. And at the same time, I can forget, whilst I'm channeling, I can forget words. And I laugh about it now. I don't feel stupid anymore. Or sometimes I can upload a video and it's a Sagittarius video, and then I think I'm uploading cancer or something ridiculous like that, which is silly. There are layers to us, and my internal boundaries have been about allowing myself to be equal to everybody else, and therefore being able to say, if you want to be in a friendship with me, this is how I function. Not because I don't want to meet you halfway with whatever your needs may be. This is what I'm capable of, you know. So it's not a conversation about, this is who I am, this is how I am, and you just have to deal with it. No, it's a conversation of, yes, this is what I offer, but this is my capacity. I'm only capable of this. And you know what? If you need something other than this, you have every right to have that in a friendship. And I'm sure there's 100 people, 1,000 people who are capable of giving you that. But I can't, and I have to be okay with that. But I have to be honest with you, you know. So what do you think about this theory of mine around feeling either inferior in a relationship or superior, and then not allowing yourself to be honest enough to be able to develop those boundaries or those internal boundaries, and then to put in place those boundaries with the relationships outside of ourselves? Are you able to see the link? Do you or don't you? What do you think?
I mean, what came up for me when you were saying that is that, you know, let me see. I'm trying to explain how I'm seeing it in my brain, but
Yeah.
when you already conditioned people to see you a certain way,
Yeah.
that's what you think they're supposed to keep getting from you.
Ah.
So whether it be that you think they're inferior or, you know, whatever, superior, or you think you're superior or vice versa, I mean, it's more about you need to undo that now and let it fall
Mm,
apart.
mm,
So that way you can rebuild, you know, that relationship. And that's pretty much what boundaries, you know, do in a
yeah.
dynamic to see
Yeah.
if it can work now or not. Lots of times you can lose people, in which I don't really call it losing people, because you're actually making space to bring in, you know, people who actually are going to value you, respect you, you know, and actually accept you for your most, you know, genuine and authentic self. And I would rather have three people that actually accept me and allow me to be who I'm supposed to be, rather than having to people please and keep
Yeah.
up with so many different versions of myself just to keep everybody happy. And so I think that that is the part that's very liberating with boundaries, is that, you know, you have to be able to feel the discomfort at the very beginning to be able to let things fall apart in order to rebuild in a healthier way, like a new foundation, you know, like just like anything that isn't working, eventually you have to, you know, break it down and rebuild and start back up. And
Yeah.
so this is what happens in these relationships. And lots of times when people are, starting to establish boundaries, they feel like they're losing people. They feel
Yeah.
like, all of a sudden, this person's not talking to me anymore, or, I'm the one who always keeps these relationships going. And now that I'm not doing these things, like, they're
Yeah.
not talking to me, or they're not as connected to me. But I don't really see that as a negative thing. I think
Yeah.
that if you once you start implementing your boundaries, you start to see who people really are to you and their real versions of their intentions towards you. And sometimes you may actually have people around you that I call sharks, like they're energy sharks. They just want to take from you, and they take advantage of you when you're going through vulnerable moments, especially when you're dealing with insecurities within yourself, where you don't know who you are, or you're still trying to figure out your own identity within yourself. So that's why people pleasing is good for a while, because you're just trying to keep up with that to keep people in your life and to feel connected. But that only lasts for so long before you start to feel disconnected, empty, like there's a
Yeah.
void, like why don't I feel happy within my relationships? That's an indication that something isn't authentic. And
Yeah.
usually it always comes back to your most authentic and genuine self. When you don't honor that, you don't feel happy. Like you're
Yeah.
not going to feel happy as a person, you know?
Yeah.
So that's what comes up for me, and I think that it's more about undoing what it is that you created, in a sense. Like that other person also, and this I also mention this in sessions with clients too. It's like, okay, this other person doesn't know anything different than what you've conditioned them to think about you. So now you have to teach them that
Yeah.
this is really what I need, this is what I want, this is what I'm not comfortable with. So it is a teaching
Yeah.
process here, where the other person isn't going to know anything different or better unless you actually confront what needs to change.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what came up for me. And then also, I want to remind us that we have 5 more minutes. And
Cool.
then we're almost done
Cool.
with our session for
You know
today.
what?
Yeah.
Just in closing, this just made me think of
Yes.
something. What does it say about the individual that praises and associates your people pleasing behavior with being a good, kind person? I think our society, for the longest time, that was just that was just the mindset of society on a whole. But what I've noticed with me is when I'm in a relationship and I see somebody's given me a percentage of their energy, their time, or whatever, or included me in some quality time, maybe an event. Oh, I'm going to a concert. Would you love to join? I make a mental note of that to return and reciprocate the energy. What does it say about people who are constantly praising you for being so self abandoning? Because I hear
Yeah.
you saying, yes, other people are only going to know the version of you that you've shown them, and they're going to think that's what you like. But is that tendency to praise people who are constantly centering you and your needs, is that a red flag that we should be looking out for in people?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
believe so.
I mean, in some sense, I think so, because, when I mean, I don't know, maybe this is the part of me that I'm just very, like I'm aware of people's energies, I can feel them. And so I think to some capacity, we all have, our own intuition, and it just depends how much you try to connect with it and are aware of it. But like I can sense when someone is just like yes, 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 everything yes, and then I'm like, are you sure? Like you're not
Yeah.
overbooking yourself, or like, like I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I am going to point it out that I'm considering you, and like
Yeah.
I want to make sure that you're okay with whatever you're saying yes to, because I do care about what you're bringing that day that you show up, and I don't want you to feel like you're overextending yourself, like spreading yourself too thin. And these are things that improve a relationship when you are aware of these things for yourself. Where like I don't have to be responsible for someone else and having to make sure that they're not over spreading themselves, because you should be the one to tell me, hey Leticia, I can't do that. I'm feeling tired. I'm overworked this week, and I'm not supposed to take that personally. Why? Because I care about you. Because I
Yeah.
want you to take care of you first. So then that way you can provide a healthier version of whatever type of relationship we have. And that is what we're supposed to be providing for one another with unconditional love, rather than, you should be doing this for me. I'm not happy that you can't, you canceled on me. Like, you're supposed to always show up. And that's not true. Sometimes we commit to things that at first felt good, and later you decide, no, I'm not in the right mindset for that. And it's okay to go back on what you thought you were originally committed to. It's actually worse when you keep seeing it like black and white. I have to fully commit myself to that. I cannot change my mind. It's a bad reflection of myself if I actually decide to, cancel or change or reschedule. I used to see it the other way. A long time ago, I would think I have to be completely all in. Like, I can't change my mind. They're going to think this about me. Now I'm like, nope, like, I'm totally fine with that, and other people have the right to change their mind too, right? So, yeah, I totally agree.
Absolutely. What an
Okay.
awesome conversation. This was really, really cool, Letitia. I hope that you guys at home, in your vehicles, wherever you are listening to this, that you've enjoyed this conversation, this topic. Please leave us your feedback at our YouTube channel, or we're on Instagram and TikTok as well. So follow us over
Yes,
there, please.
all of our social links are embedded in our YouTube. So if you want to connect with us anywhere on our social media to support our podcast, or even our other, pages with other types of work that we're doing, feel free to, access everything there.
Awesome. Thank you, Letitia. Thank you so much. This was great. This was fun.
I know. I love connecting with your energy. Like, if it wasn't because I have another session right now, like, I'd be like, let's talk for one
We've
more
got
hour.
we would go on and on, eh? But you must
I
enjoy
know. I
yeah,
love it.
you must enjoy the rest of your day. I know you've got to jump into another session. It's evening time for me, so I get to chill. My day's done. Lots of love, Letitia, and
Yay.
we'll chat. We'll get together
Yes, lots of
again at the
love for
next.
you too.
Okay,
Yes, yes. And thank you to our listeners out there. And, let us know what you think. If there's anything else that you would like us to talk about, we're definitely open to feedback and, being able to talk about anything that is helpful for anybody.
cool.
Okay. All
Okay,
right.
cool.
Okay. Take care. Until next time. Alrighty. Bye.
Bye.